They do have the best stories. Like, what's the most egregious thing you saw when you were on below deck, like from behind the scenes, like with a producer? I mean, like you always hear stories.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot more chilled out, like in terms of like we got away with a lot more in the first season. And then, yeah, as the bigger the show got, the kind of stricter it all got. So I've definitely got a lot of stories from this little island, Naxos, in the Greek islands when we filmed season 1. But yeah, I think it was definitely interesting, like realizing what they leave out. And mostly it's because, you know, there are certain characters and things like that they can't villainize too much. So that was probably, that's very interesting as well.
Do a lot of people that come to your course to learn about actual life on yachts, do they all want to talk about below deck?
No, do you know what? It's actually really nice because we've kind of, with our bronze course, for example, that's kind of teaching you the who, what, why, when, where, how of the yachting industry, how to get into it, the seasons. So it's like something you could take if you wanted to learn more about yachting and wanted to see if you wanted to work on boats. But with our silver course, it's like very in-depth. It teaches you about the actual job itself. We have like monthly Zoom calls with our students. We do, like, we help them with their CV, with contacts. So it's like by the time you get to the silver course where you're actually chatting with me, then you need to have invested like a certain amount of time and energy and money to be at that stage. So the people that get there are actually quite serious about joining the yachting industry. So the only thing they ask, I guess, is like, what's the difference between what we see on the TV with below deck and the actual reality of yachting? So
right, like someone's not going to go through the whole bronze just to say hi to Hannah from below
deck.
These people want like a real job and like a real connection.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of, to be honest with you, that's something I was a little bit worried about at the start, because I was like, I don't want to be sitting on these Zoom calls with people just asking me questions about like, oh my God, did it annoy you when she didn't answer a radio, or, you know, that sort of stuff. It was like, I want to help people who really want to work in yachting, and that's what's happened. So it's great.
What do you think is like the biggest misconception about the yachting industry from people who watch below deck?
Probably like how fast paced it is, because the charters that we do on below deck are 2 nights. Right. So you kind of see like 2 nights, night out, 2 nights, night out, 2 nights, night out. And that's not how it works. Like I was on a boat once and we were on charter for 4.5 months straight.
Wow.
So apart from like a cheeky glass of wine when you were out provisioning, there was no nights out. There was no, you know, of that kind of crazy fun sort of side. So obviously each boat's different, but there is some private boats where the owner will come on for the whole summer. So probably all the drinking and the jacuzzi use and drinking all the alcohol at the bar is the biggest difference.
And what about how, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people who have been on below deck and just are in the yachting industry. What about, you know, like people that end up hooking up or dating actual charter guests after? Like, is that really, because I've heard such mixed things.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that it would happen.
Yeah, it definitely happens. But yeah, I guess it's kind of hard. There's a lot as well of, so do you remember the first season of Sailing with Sierra and Pageant?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that in yachting where it's like people who've actually been together for 2 years and they work on the same boat and they have that relationship. So it's probably not as much like this person hooks up with this person today and then this is tomorrow and then this is the next day. So I think that's more like below deck land.
Have you ever been starstruck where you just had someone on a charter that was, you know, like Beyonce or Jay-Z or someone like uber famous?
No. So before below deck, primarily you can work on private or charter, and I always worked for on private for Russians basically before below deck. So I've seen it all, but I've not seen the famous people.
So, because I've heard so many stories about that too, you know?
Yeah.
What is next for you? Motherhood, podcast, wedding. Tell us what else you have going on.
Yeah, so just concentrating on Ocean International at the moment. I'm still really loving being part of that. The podcast, we've got, we're just settling into the new house. As you can see, it's a little bit crazy. I said to Josh the other day, I said, it's kind of funny when you go from renting, because when you move in somewhere, when you're renting, you kind of just put things away and make it work. Whereas when you own, you want things to actually be in their correct places and a bit of organization.
Totally.
So concentrating on that. And yeah, I managed to stay pretty busy between those things.
You have a lot going on. What do you love best about being a podcast host, from one host to another? Like, do you just love hearing people's stories? Like, what is it that you love the best?
Yeah, no, I really do. So it was so funny. I got Josh to come on a podcast with me, like, and do a podcast with me.
I think I saw that.
Oh, it was the worst. It was like ripping fucking teeth. And you realize that, like, people who are not in that industry, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, so how's fatherhood going? He's like, good.
I hate
I'm
that.
like,
I've had,
yes.
You could never tell, right? Like, I have guests where I'm like, this person is going to be amazing, and then they're horrible. And then other people where you're like, oh, do I have to speak to this person? You're like, they were the best ever, right? Like, you just sometimes can't tell.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is he just, like, it was these one word answers, and I was like, this is like ripping teeth. And so many people had requested, they're like, get Josh on your podcast. And I was like, God, I did it for you fuckers, but I'm never doing it again.
You're like, just go see him on the Instagram. Like, that's all you're going to see.
Yeah. So no, I love hearing, it's also such a good way as well. Like, for like 11 years, all I did was travel the world. So I'm so used to knowing kind of what's going on in all different countries around the world. So the podcast is great because I'm chatting to people all over the world, and I get to, like, keep up with world events in terms of, obviously it's not like the war on Afghanistan or things like that. We kind of keep it pretty light on my podcast, but it's just nice to hear how other countries are going. And especially during COVID, it was such a great way to keep in touch with the world,
I agree. Do you keep in touch, or, like, you didn't really work with them, but like Captain Lee, like Kate Chastain, like, do you hear from them a lot?
So yeah, no, it's actually Lee's birthday today. Happy birthday, Lee. It's the same day as my dad. So yeah, I love Lee. I keep in touch with, like, Eddie, and that's about it. And then obviously a few people from my season.
We love Eddie.
Yeah, he's the sweetheart.
We like seeing Eddie back. Any thoughts on any of the other housewives? Are you excited, before we go? Are you excited for, like, Heather Dubrow to come back to the OC? Are you upset that New York is off and may not come back for? I don't know. I don't know how that's
looking. I think New York needs a breather, to be honest. I feel like it was getting very toxic.
I mean, they're saying 2023 at the earliest, which,
wow,
I kind of makes sense. Like, if you're not going to film until 2022, like, that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. Look, this is not a popular opinion, but I kind of think that, they need to get rid of some of those OGs on New York. It's just getting stale, and it's kind of like that older, obnoxious white woman with heaps of money is just a little bit done.
And it's, I live in New York. It's not New York. There's a lot going on here.
I feel like there's, like, so many, like, New York, you're like, okay, say, for example, in a smaller place like Potomac, like, you have this amazing cast and you got them out of Potomac and DC. Like, New York, it's fucking New York. You have, like, a smorgasbord of amazing, fabulous, successful, independent, educated women, and, like, we're still going with fucking Ramona, really? Like,
would Ramona be your first to go out of those three? I mean, we only have three OGs.
Yeah, I'm not. I just think she's, I don't know, she's just a bit rude.
Did you ever, who have you met, like, through the Bravolebrity world that you were just like, this person's great? And who have you met that you were like, this person's not so great?
So I only met Ramona very quickly in a restaurant, and she was exactly how I thought she would be. I was out in West Hollywood for a night with Tom Sandoval, who was a sweetheart, just such a nice guy. I love Mercedes from Shah's. I just interviewed her this morning. She's a sweetheart as well.
She's awesome.
Oh, Sheena from Vanderpump. She's like not what you would think she is from like watching the show. She's actually just very lovely and down to earth and just a nice, chilled out, good human being.
I totally agree about Sheena.
Yeah. I've got a lot of
smart
time for her.
And like nice and just so generous
and so sweet.
I was shocked with Sheena myself. Totally.
Yeah. So my brain is just.
Did remote? Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Stephanie from the Housewives of Dallas. She is like the loveliest human being in the world.
She's a sweetie.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Did Ramona even understand that you were on Bravo, that you were on a show called? Right. I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. You weren't a housewife, and therefore she had no idea of what you were talking about.
Yeah, no.
Even though Below Deck is one of the highest rated shows on Bravo.